Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Tuesday, November the 27th. Yes, 2018. And I'm joined this evening by my friends, Lisa Flamino Rush and BZ Rieger. Everybody in their places, in their bright, shiny faces, and because I missed you both.
I know.
Very much.
I missed home too.
I know you did. So BZ, instead of us playing with anything in particular tonight, I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
That I would love for us to play with. We kind of sort of planned this, but you don't know exactly how I'm going to ask. So, it would seem I get this a lot. I get this a lot lately in particular. It's like there'll be certain concepts that folks will have. And I mean, I've actually had someone say quite a lot recently that I live in a spiritual bubble.
They live in a spiritual bubble?
Well, no, actually, I apparently live in a spiritual bubble.
Okay.
Folks perhaps like me who I'm not quite sure what all the connotation is, because quite clearly I'm moving towards stepping outside of limitation and working on my programming that I clearly still have. But I personally don't feel oppressed and enslaved. Now, maybe for me, I'm looking at it on a multidimensional level or something. But even so, I still live in this physical 3D, this vessel that, I'm talking with right now. Sorry, I speak with all.
Is that what you were doing? Okay, I'm glad that's clear.
glad I cleared that up for you. Well, but I live in this particular, realm along with everyone else, specifically those that have said things like that. But I've been feeling like it's a state of mind. So I kind of would like to discuss this. Is enslavement a state of mind? Or, it's kind of hard to oppress someone who is say, I don't feel oppressed. I don't feel enslaved.
It's a dimensional thing.
Okay.
So, aside from I'm talking like this or whatever you said, I'm trying to parse through all that one. I'm just going to leave over there. I'm not sure.
Well, I do feel very multidimensional lately, and so I felt as though I had to distinguish very clearly between my physical oddities of me with all these other, because
Okay, now you look like you have multi-dimensional something or other.
I told you I felt like the earth was listing this way before we even started recording. So
okay, would it be fair to say that your intention is to be a KACB sans any bubbles? Yes?
that's my goal. Yes.
Okay.
My goal, my intention,
Yeah. So one of the reasons, the simplest way to well, and it's accurate as well, but the simplest way to kind of sort through what you're talking about is its dimension. So It's a really big question that you asked. It may seem like a simple question because, am I in a bubble or are they in a bubble or where are these bubbles or how the bubbles work? And it's not. It actually kind of a question of the foundation, a question of ascension. So I'm just going to start with some really brief sort of things. Back in 2012, which was a very common time, beginning of 2012 was a common time for it to happen. A whole lot of beings were, and more because of the energies, more and more every day were talk about it. So heretofore they what, ascension, what, is that some religious thing or, hadn't, but the energies were such, and that was their time that they had set as a trigger for themselves to wake up. So, but there was a lot of talk of, okay, well, ascension, and we're going to go to the fifth dimension. We're going to go to the fifth dimension. And, all these things are going to change. I'm going to get my superpowers and all this stuff. And, it's going to be kumbaya and, everything's great. Okay. Thinking that, so part of the mindset was to leave this, crappy place that either each individual was in, or kind of as a whole, or if I don't think about that over there, or only go on a mountain or by a pretty tree, or a whole lot of things characterized by that. Clean up my language, don't smoke, don't do this, don't do that, all the things that from a linear standpoint, then, I'm good to go. And because those are all external things out there, and all those bad people that are bringing me down, they're just going to go away. I'm not going to look at them, and I got it. Okay, except they forgot the whole being that was right there within them. So anyways, that's one way to say that you don't go anywhere per se. You don't go anywhere per se when you ascend. And you travel light years, and everything changes, and your entire world environment changes when you ascend. Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you just described my experience of the last 2 years.
Right.
So far.
Because wherever you go, there you are, which is a very apt phrase, and could have probably been brought forward by a starseed to a long time ago start to describe ascension. But so if you're in denial of anything, whether it's something that is bad or hard to look at, or something that is whatever you think of the opposite of that, I don't know, I guess oming by a tree or something, either of those things are actually, in essence, okay, it's more than essence, but they are frequency vibrational matches to each other. So that's why I just kind of say the fluffy bunny crew and the the pitchfork the rat bastards crew, right? Which means they're not looking, their energy vibrational characteristic is not looking at, if you're the fluffy bunny over here, you're not looking over there, and same over here. They're the same, because in lopping off all of those other energies and and not having integration and not having holding of you. Never mind, forget anything else that there's. Just I'm just talking about each individual being, right? They are in essence putting themselves in a bubble, and it's a non. Okay, very funny. I was gonna say it's non-denominational was what came to mind. I was saying non-dimensional bubble, right? As in you not being the ability to not change dimensional strata, dimensional frequencies. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Because when you're so focused on, no, I don't want to hear anything about the swamp, or I really, I hear people say that Trump is good, but he couldn't be. I don't want to. No, I don't want to hear. Okay, so they put themselves in a bubble.
Yeah.
And the same with those who. Okay, it's happening now. We're gonna arrest all of them. We're gonna have public hangings. We're gonna, we're gonna have Humvees dragging these people drawn and quartered through the streets, and the rest that weren't so bad we're going to put in jail, and because it's all angry and punishment and punitive and vehemence, and they have put themselves in a non-denominational dimensional bubble as well. And this is going to be the really freaky part for the groups in those bubbles. They're in the same bubble. So like they gotta hang out with each other in this, because they're in essence creating a reality where that holding, that work, that inside jobness, that integration, that transcending all of the duality, because that's a perpetuation, on a very acute, very spicy, very seasoned, very, a big banquet type thing has been served up.
Yep.
So they may seem diametrically opposed from a linear looking at it, fluffy bunnies and pitchfork rat bastards, they're not, because they are the same frequency. They're the la 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 fluffy bunnies, or the la 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 pitchforks, meaning, don't look at anything else. Don't look at that.
Well, can I ask you a quick question about that? Because what came to mind for me when you were saying that is that in the passion play, for lack of better terminology, that's playing out, they serve each other.
Yes.
And that is why they're in the same, they're a frequential match, and they're in that, because it's actually, for crap's sake, it's actually what keeps going on right now. It's continually perpetuating that reality because it's serving.
Right. And like I said before, it's just changing shirts.
That's right.
And then that's not ending the game, is it?
It's completing.
It's starting a new one, but it's the same game.
Well,
yeah,
and
it's not starting
the
new one. It's just slipping.
Perpetuating the old.
That's right.
Yeah. With a facelift, a renovation, and updates. And
same girl do party dress.
Thank you. Yeah. I cannot tell you how much I have used that terminology in the last little bit here, because, and I'm just so surprised at how much I can see same girl, different party dress in all these different quarters, and the amount of folks that are like, oh, look, something new. Oh, let's move towards that. I'm like, no, that's not new. That just might. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff lately where, let's tack on a word that sounds really, really good. Like you think it should be, yay, fluffy bunnies, okay? It could be fluffy bunny. As I actually saw a video where they were talking about democratic socialism and asking people to, what's the difference between socialism and democratic socialism? And you put the word in front of it. It means the same.
Well, so let me ask you a question. You guys go to lots of different Facebook pages and blogs, and watch different YouTube stuff, and yeah, there are a few. Actually, I get the sense that there are more shifting that way, but would you say that a lot of them that you go to are either just for the description that we're talking about here, they're either the fluffy bunnies or the it's crumbling and now the justice, well, hopefully no one are saying justice but the arrests are coming, right? So it's all crumbling down, right? It seems to be those two things. Yes.
Well, there's a lot of okay, I won't say, because I don't gravitate to those kinds of things anymore because I know what they are. But I am noticing, what I do notice is the comments on the different pages or on the different videos.
Right. So
I'm not looking. Yeah, I don't, because I see what that is, and I'm taking what I expose myself to very seriously. I see what that is. I know what that is, and I might peek in every now and again, but I don't.
Well, I'm only actually using it because I don't want to, because I think some of what I've already said is either really pissing people off or confusing them.
Oh.
Or maybe they're confused and pissed off at the same time. I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm only using those different kinds of Facebook pages, or I'm not limiting it to just one or the other, right? So
right.
All that's multimedia out there, and they're different things, and we call them blogs and yada yada yada. Okay.
Right.
I'm not pointing to so much by the actual Facebooker who has the page, or the blogger, or the YouTuber or whatever. Per se. I'm just saying the content. A lot of the content could be said is, if you're looking at it in not a holding way, oh, that's fluffy bunny, and or so that's good, that's spiritual, that's this, that's great, that's the right thing, and that over there. So one perspective would be that over there is, you can't focus on that stuff, it's no good. Or someone else may say, oh, that's the fluffy bunny stuff, and this is the real, truther type thing. And you're right. So you look at the comments, because a lot of the beings who are putting the content on those, whatever those platforms are, themselves are more and more having their own expansion and their own integration. And so kind of what they'll delve into has broadened a bit and changed. And what's interesting is that they're then having a whole thing which is kind of, some of them anyways, catching them by surprise, because in their comments, as they're making that more holding, right, the commenters in whatever platform they have are going, well, you can't talk about that because that's not, if they're over here in the pitchfork, that's, wait a minute, that's too spiritual. Or over here, no, you know what I mean? So because it's the camps, it's, there's camps. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I wanted to just highlight here, not for advertising, but just because it's the way that I've always held it, is the IUV is both, has always been both. You could have talking about, energetic frequencies in this, and right next to it is, a headline about investigating, serious satanic stuff. So on a large measure, the ones who normally would go here might come by because the way it's set up, it's easy for them to find in each of those camps, right? But then they see the next thing, they're like, okay, well, that's lost all credibility from where they are, right? But a lot who come and who, for whatever reason, kept doing that, but kept getting drawn to that, bit the apple over here or the apple over here, realize, no, this is all that's going on. And it's all a part of this duality and this division and this separation. And the way to find the path out, so to say, or the clues, or the, where the right thread is that you can pull, and gives you a lot of unwinding and unbinding, is by weaving the two together, because there's huge dots that illuminate over here, which then point you to dots over here. And one of the things that was always really important to me is people would say, oh, well, they don't really go together. You want to keep them separate? I said, no, because we're not separate. We just think we're separate. And, especially if they're thinking, if the thought process was, well, now, everybody's catchphrase is the deep state, but the Cabal, the Illuminati, so the false construct is basically the way that I hold it.
Right.
They are fluent. Okay, this is, I'm talking very linear here. They are fluent in both sides. In fact, that is how they've gotten this to work and got everybody, without really noticing it, to be complicit in all of it.
Yeah.
Because you have the linear, the stuff that's in the basket of the pitchforky stuff over here, and they know how to run the spiritual, the energetic frequencies, the magic of the very evil sort, right, over here, and they layer them together. They hold them to their advantage and layer them over. So it never made sense to me when people would say, well, you really should do one or the other. I'm thinking, well, why? Because that's the way out is through, and that's how we get there. So anyways, that's just a tangible example you can go and look at, where those two things, they have to march lockstep together, because that's how we unwind and unbind all of it.
Well, there's something else that just came in for me on that too, actually. Oh, wow. Okay, so part of the metaphor of what we're doing here, right? The whole ascension thing, period, is the marriage of there's a lot of different ways to describe it for me, the male and the female together becoming a third. It could be the soul and the physical melding and becoming a third. We've discussed this before, right? That too has to do with what's going on with these different camps and whatever.
Yes.
The two have to meld to become the third.
Yes.
Yeah.
And through that melding and becoming the third, that process in and of itself helps to unbind and unwind.
Yes. Because you could look at it from a tangible way. It actually lets you visibly see deception, right? And all those kinds of things, so that you can help to unwind it. It helps you feel into and realize that it's not just this linear word. So that helps you unbind and unwind. And when you have a holding around it and an integration of those two things, so you may get really, and I'm going to apologize here because I don't hold it this way, but I'm using these as examples to really kind of make it more polarized. So if you go in deep to one fluffy bunniness, right, and you really dive into whatever that is, but if that's where you stay only, then you've actually excluded all the rest from your energy and haven't integrated it.
Right.
Just as if, the same thing over here, if you're diving down a rabbit hole and you're looking, oh, that's disgusting, oh, that's horrible, oh, these people are, drawn and quartered is too good for them, kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm not saying don't have those experiences, those emotions to deal with, because, on both counts, you kind of have to, because there's a lot there on both counts to deal with, right? So it's just staying in. It's kind of spinning on whatever side it is that's not helpful, because that isn't how it unwinds and binds. And when you do them, and you can do maybe some of this and some of that, or some of this, some of that, however each one does it is their own choice, right?
Right.
But as you do it, so let's pretend for right now it's kind of this hand motion, so some of this and some of this, right? Okay. And you're holding bits of it. You actually are changing everything within your being. So not just the physical structure that, if I've got skin and blood and bones and all that kind of stuff, but all the different bodies, all of my bodies, right? I am changing all of it. And it's the holding of that, the integration of that makes that change. And I am changing and shifting not only my frequency and my bandwidth expansion rate, but I am changing the very dimension that I reside in.
Well, what also has been coming in from, I have to tell y'all again, I feel so dizzy. This feels like a very huge conversation. What was coming in for me there a bit too is that I think there's a few, there have been a few, I myself actually even have taken a lot of, and I used to do this a lot more, but now I can see where I've been able to unfocus my eyes a bit and widen that aperture, if you will. And what I mean by that is that some of the physical matrix, false construct things that we tend to look at in the 3D and see and think that, this or that or the other has to happen before this, that, or the other can take place and all of that, right?
Right.
And it has to happen up here in this expanded area first and on a different level. I have to, I'm in the process of doing this. I haven't completed it. I just know this is just now coming in this particular fashion. Okay. You have to start freeing yourself up here. I didn't realize that until just now, actually. I had to start freeing myself up here first. And what I mean by that is the mind, partly there's something outside of, not just in the physical vessel. There's a freeing that has to be done here first on a level. I didn't have the language for that. until this moment, actually. But I feel it very strongly. There's a existential is not the right word. Conceptual doesn't feel like the right word, but there's a dimensionality to this first that for me that I'm seeing or feeling in this moment of now that has been going on and being worked on out here as that holding comes in or is pulled in, then and worked within in here is when it starts being seen or felt for me, and it will happen individually as this work is being done. So thank you, because this is very helpful for me personally. I've had quite a few comments in regards to what I think I'm doing here as being in a spiritual bubble. I just don't get it, that sort of thing. And I have felt the same way about some of those comments. No, you don't get it. It's not a spirit. You're trapped is my feeling that has been. And now I see the difference in just this moment of now. The difference is, honestly, I'm working on freeing myself up here, and I'm refusing to allow myself to feel trapped in something that it was not my making, that I'm not participating in that energetic.
And can I add? Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say in that energetic frequency.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on something that's super important here, because this is a piece. And I know we keep saying it's an inside job, but it feels to me like what you're describing is when you get to doing that inside job, when you start to whole yourself and integrate all of the parts and pieces of you, that creates that alchemical reaction. And that's what you're talking about. When that alchemical reaction takes place, it activates everything, and it materializes not only that awareness for you, but then also it dissolves the veil. You can't unsee it once you actually see it or feel it, or no, you become it. It goes from an idea that you're kicking around to a thing that you embody. It emanates from you. If that makes
It makes perfect sense to me, but
does.
I mean, I guess like I was saying, I feel very strongly that it's something for me anyway. It's going to be different for everyone, I feel, but for me anyway, it was and is something that I've worked on, and I just say up here because and then pull it into here, and it has changed the way I hold it or behold it, I guess is what I'm saying.
what you doing, BZ?
Well, I was told it would be easy to find. I'm trying to find a picture because I think I can help people clear a lot of this up, at least conceptually.
Okay.
If I can, this isn't really the best picture, but let's, so I can do this quickly. So let me just, so part of what I would say is that you're, no, I don't want them to go away. I just want you to go. Can I minus you? Oh, okay, apparently not. Okay, well, I'll stop messing with that. Let's see. Is that it's really important. Languaging is difficult because it doesn't quite get us where we want to go. And part of that is because we are human beings in a linear existence, and we're using our linear minds to describe things from a linear perspective, which are not linear at all. So in order to try to grok it, we try to decode it with, okay, let's see if this worked here. We try to decode it with our linear language and our minds. I'm going to share the screen. Just open the friggin' video. Okay, so this isn't quite accurate, but it gets a sense. So when Sheila, when you say, you know, up here, so that's kind of an out there.
Right.
And it makes sense from a linear decoding language standpoint, because, you know, you're you and you're in this thing, and not all of you is there. So you're trying to kind of, how do I describe that, right? It's I gotta kind of take care of it out here first, and then I can, you know, open the hatch and I can pour it in, right? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So and what I'm trying to see if I can do here is to shift the characterization of it a little bit so that it paints a slightly different picture. Because when people are not quite certain they're feeling into something or thinking about something in a certain way, and then there's more out there stuff, it actually perpetuates that separation. It perpetuates that division. It perpetuates that smallness.
Yeah, I can see where that would be an issue.
So if you look at this picture, this is actually a picture of a wormhole. So if you think of everything in this image where it's dark out here, you can see my little cursor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So think of all this dark, just darker color. Don't think dark matter or anything, just darker color. So that could be the outside world. That could be the job, that could be the swamp, that could be, right? So out there, that, you know, that would be in essence where you're pointing to, Sheila, when you go like this. And then this part that's orange, which is the edges of you, okay? This is a picture I'm going to just use this description. This orangey part here is you, right? So the edges of you, right, are closest to the exterior, the more linear, right? Yeah. And the reason that this picture is helpful is because when people say it's an inside job and they're holding it, as you were doing a minute ago, Sheila, well, you know, I've got to sort this out here because it's imploding in, right? You know, they're thinking, well, there's not a lot in here. An inside job, well, inside's kind of empty because I'm trapped or I'm stuck or I'm small, or, right? You know, and I've been very well trained all along that what I want is out there and my power is out there, right? Okay. So what would like to introduce is a way to invert that with this image right here. And that is that we are the genesis of everything. So inside, what is inside you is galaxies worth of energy and creation and power and magnificence and diversity and galaxies. That would be just like, you know, one corner right over here by your right clavicle, you know. So it's multiverses with this. So when it's an inside job, so you've heard of the macrocosm and the microcosm, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another way to say that the stuff of celestial bodies and the stuff of source, or some refer to as God, and all of that is all within you. So if you look at a picture like this, now you start to see, well, wait a minute, because I don't see a lot on the outside where it's dark, but on the inside, it looks like there's a whole lot of stuff going on, right? I mean, just to look from a linear pictorial understanding, there seems to be a whole lot more going on in here than out here. Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
So that's actually so in describing what is going on within you.
Absolutely.
That's where all the action is.
Right. Because when we're trying to decode something, if we say, out here, you'd be better off to go in here, because that's where, this power source that lights worlds is right within you.
Yeah. I love this. That's beautiful. Thank you for showing that and clearing that up, because this is really, really big. I feel like I have had this conversation with so many people, especially in regards to money. Because I've tried to have this conversation with many people. We really don't need money. I kind of woke up to that at age 5. And when you say that to people who are very enlightened in all kind of different ways will tell you that that's silly, because of course we need money. And to me, this reminds me of something. When I saw that picture, BZ, it was reminding me of a story I was told when it was being explained to me from my guidance. And that was that, they were using as a metaphor Adam and Eve. And that what happened was that they were sold a bill of goods. So it was a thought process that they bought, hook, line, and sinker. They swallowed something. And what that was the big deceit, if you will, was that they needed something outside of them for anything, okay? That it wasn't all within them. So that was the parable of the tree. So that was God's withholding something from you. And if you eat the apple, then you'll know the thing that's missing. You'll gain enlightenment. And so sort of like a dangling carrot, really, that there's something out there. To me, magic does that too with, it's the ritual that is powering the magic. Money, because it's the money that makes the world go round. When in reality, those are tricks. It's smoke and mirrors, because you have all of that within you. And so the only way that you can be deceived is to believe that there is something that you are not.
Right.
And so that I love that picture, because it showed how everything that was going on in that picture was inside of that circle.
Right. Well,
and also your meme too, that the world reflects. So again, the world is a reflection of what's going on in here. And to me, it's also a reflection of what I am focusing on inside of me. Because
that's the predominant energy vibration that you hold.
Well, I want to be very clear about the way I was using this description.
Okay.
Because I don't hold it from the outside of me.
I know that, I
realize that you know that, BZ, but I wanted to show this picture because for me, this is even a better picture than the one, because I really feel like for me personally, and everyone's process as to how they're going to go about this will absolutely be different.
Right.
It cannot be exactly the same. No one's, by the way, nobody's process is going to be identical to anybody else's. Get over it, because you're unique. And that's just the way it's going to be.
Well, and because that would mean that your original mission went seriously awry, because you were supposed to go forth and know source as source, and all of those different right things. So if you're trying to go over here on this train
exactly. So what but I really I feel, and I don't know why I feel this, there's obviously someone who I did confuse, but they were tracking for a bit. And so I want to say it like this.
Okay.
I don't you guys can't see my cursor, I know that, but at the top of this picture where you see the green, all of this, just to be clear, all of this picture is me.
Yes.
All of it. The inside, the outside, the roundabout, the pretty bright light in the middle is actually where the heart is. And so for me, when I say the out here part, I'm just speaking about a larger part of me, myself. And for me personally, it just feels like that. And I didn't even realize it until we had this conversation actually tonight, that in order for me and my thought processes, my unique way that I've gone about things, which we all have, everybody has it. And maybe this is part of that intellectual process thing I got going on, or had going on, or whatever, still trapped in for whatever, I don't know. But thinking about it out here, and what I mean out here, I'm just talking now about on a more expanded level. That's what I meant by that expanded. I've stepped back now into my larger, that green portion of me that's out here that can see all of that cool stuff on the inside and all that stuff out there. And I'm working it out up there or around here that's outside of the programmed physicality that I got going on in this incarnation, the shirt and the chair.
Okay, that made it, when you just added the picture, that made it more clear, because before there were a lot of people feeling that, okay, so how can it be an inside job if it's out here at the same time? So good. Okay, so we both helped, I think, to clear up a bit and maybe confuse a whole bunch of others.
Well, because guess what? It's also not a stair step. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this. That ain't how this works either, as far as I'm concerned, because if so, I'm noticing that,
you got it wrong.
I already did it way kind of wrong, and
well, that's why it's toroidal,
right?
So it's happened. The inside stuff happens, and the outer layers, and the upper layers, and the downer layers, and the diagonal layers, and it's just the way it is,
right? And I think too, for me now, what I feel is that a lot of the issue, I guess, is that at the bottommost level, perhaps even those, which sometimes may even include myself, just haven't accepted the fact that we are actually our source. Or you can say it all day long. You can say you're one all day long and really think you believe that. But I don't understand how anybody can walk around thinking they're all their source and all one, and still trapped, and still a prisoner.
Well, see, that goes back to what I said begin answering your question at the beginning, is it's a dimensional thing.
And that's what I meant by coming.
Dimension.
That's exactly why I was describing it in that fashion for me, because I think that's.
So we've talked a lot about well, we kind of described it as your expansion goes. You have bilocational consciousness and then multilocational consciousness,
Right.
and then you're out into the the whole range of consciousness. But so from a consciousness perspective, if you're looking at the world and you think, oh yeah, the company line way the world is, that's the way it is, then you're either still in a very linear, three-dimensional box, and that's where you are. It's not good or bad, it just is where you are.
Yep.
Then you start to notice them. Now, maybe you may not see have a holding on all different sides, but something's caught your eye, something's caught your attention, something's caught your focus and your energy frequency, and so you're noticing, we'll say, the deep state, right? But maybe not all aspects of it, just like the last 10 years, we'll say. And so there seems to be more predominantly Democratic or whatever, and they're the super rep bastards. Maybe a couple of other ones that aren't Democrats that are rep bastards too, but so that is now a shift in consciousness, an expansion of consciousness, but that is more like the middle of the third dimension, or very lower fourth as far as the consciousness, because you're only seeing that, and you're not feeling, sensing, letting your knowings. Again, this is not someone that has nothing to do with anything outside of you. It has only to do with it. Doesn't, nobody else matters. They could all disappear today. So because you're focused on, so in this example that I'm giving to describe this, it's the deep state. You're focused on, and to give a more defined or more confined description, the last 10 years, let's say, right? So that your consciousness has not expanded enough, where you're on the predominant frequency that you hold, to be able to flow in multidimensional consciousness, and see all these different layers. Same if you're over here, right? As we use this, was the example before, where it's the fluffy bunny. So if you realize that, oh, okay, you're our energy, and you're one, and that kind of stuff, you're doing it, but you're only actually expanding your energy frequency and shifting your dimensional bandwidth where you reside a smidge, because you've limited it, you've capped it off, you've bubbled it, to use part of what your question was. And as you start to see that it's a fabric, it's this energetic fabric, and they are all connected. A simple, kind of footnote to that, what I just said, is we wouldn't be where we are with what people label and describe and categorize, in either camp, if it wasn't all connected. It simply could not have happened.
No, exactly.
And so there are a lot of beings who maybe they follow Q, or maybe they have, I hate the labels, but whatever it is, but they're thinking that it's that the deep state are just regular linear, they don't even use it, words, they're just human beings that are badass human beings doing rotten stuff, and they're missing 99% of the picture. That because I don't care how many guns you have or how much money and how many idiots you can pay to do bad stuff because they like doing bad stuff, whatever. You can't orchestrate the pervasiveness and the depth and the breadth and the brilliance, the magnificent. I'm sorry, people can get pissed off all they want, but it's true of what this whole false construct is not possible if you're not doing it from a multi-locational consciousness and expanded frequency and off-world consciousness capabilities. It just would not happen.
Well, see, now I think you just hit on something really huge there, BZ, because that too is what I mean by out here when I was talking about them more expanded, because first you have to kind of grok the fact that that it is all connected, and it is all of, not just 3D linear, but also multi-dimensional, interdimensional, galactic and extragalactic, and all of these things all wound up together, because quite frankly, it's the only thing that explains the friggin' weirdness that we got going on.
Right. And, again, where my cursor is out here, there's not a lot of complexity from a visual metaphor, right? Out here.
Right.
This is where all the activity, where all the complexity is, and it's all within inside us. And so you could also hold this as in here where my cursor is moving around is the higher dimensional frequencies, the higher frequency dimension realities, right? So this part out here did not come first. It's the very last thing, as far as creation. So it came from within. All of this colored stuff is all the engine. We'll say it's all the fire. If you think about a big cauldron where they're making steel, you could see it's red and flaming hot, and you think, oh, that's just really hot, kind of smelly stuff. Well, what are you going to do with that? And then you look over there, which would be in this picture over here in the darker area. There's these tables, and there's pipes, and there's swords, and there's all these. How'd you get that stuff? Well, it came from there. Oh, I see. So you mean this tool made that fire? No. They can't get on the table. The table with all of your things that you created out of the steel. You in this example didn't get there until it came from the inside. That fire in this metaphor, of that creation. I think that's another thing that a lot of people don't even fathom it. So a lot of people don't even fathom that at all. A lot of people, other people who have more expanded perspective on different things don't truly grok that. Then a whole lot of others, it's kind of like we're all one, or we're eternal, or those kind of, they seem to be like catchphrases almost, instead of what they are. But a lot of those others in that range, they don't hold that, that this here, this shirt, whatever it is, the only way it got here was from the creational forces that come from within me or you, or you could point in any direction, right? It doesn't start, like the phone, right? This does not come from. Okay, this is probably a bad example because this is so not linear. But anyways, it's really important, and sometimes a big stretch for some, that we didn't start with a politician, and that's just the natural order of things, is to have those politicians, or to have garbage trucks, or there were creations that we all made in order to have the different experiences. And when we were playing and thought, so you could use your company line history of caveman, and oh, I want to kill a beast quicker, get something.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. You make those things. It doesn't. It didn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And actually, if you start to take those pieces that are all different dots and connect them, you without being in the fluffy bunny camp or the pitchfork camp, you can go, well, hang on, because none of that correlates to anything, and it just is impossible to be so. And that's just in the public domain. You don't have to look very far for hidden stuff.
But something came in for me that I felt was very instrumental for me anyway, and I'll share it. When you were talking about, you were saying about how being all one and all of that could be a catchphrase, and that maybe I'm thinking that there's a lot of folks who might say these things who think they might believe them, but at some level there's not a knowing, there's a hope. That's what came in. I heard the word, there's a hope that what I'm hearing about being all one and being eternal, being a creator, I'm hoping that's true. And I know it's easy enough to get into that kind of a thought process because, everybody was hoping there was I don't know, pick your religion. I'm not going to pick on anybody in particular, but I hope that, I'm good. I hope I got saved or whatever the case may be. And instead of a knowing, and that may be part of that too. But that's that inside thing that only each individual one. And the only way I can see that has worked for me is working on my own crap, calling my own self out all the time.
Yeah, and I'm nudged right here to kind of make this programming note. So, because I can hear lots of head scratching and different questions and a whole lot of kibitzing comments. Well, that'll be a safe way to put it. If you want to hold it in a very base linear way, and kind of wherever your propensity is on the campness, right? So, there's camps here and here, so the campness. So you're laser locked on something, whatever it is, and everything else is just missing the boat, bubble-fied, whatever it is. So in that process, there is a real conviction, a real certainty, a real attachment, a real demonstrable cognitive kind of laying out a game plan that, again, remember, I'm not talking about not anyone specific, but whatever your camp that you're in, and in that camp you want all the rest that's annoying and infringing upon your camp to go the hell away, right? To dematerialize, although that may be too much of a quantum word to use. Okay. And so this programming node is that terrific. And the way to do that, the only way to do that, is from an inside job, is from your expanding and integration and holding of yourself, because then you stand in, as the picture that I showed and the picture that Sheila showed, you stand in that unstoppable capacity and creatorship. And as if that wasn't, like reason enough, important enough, the whatever it is that that your camp is pointing out, that's the out there, they know that, and they use it to their advantage, and they're terrified, and I'm talking very linear here, they're terrified that you might actually walk from one camp to the other and go, oh yeah, I think a lot of that stuff's silly, but that's interesting, and you bring it to your camp, and then there's pieces of these camps and they're terrified, and they really love it. They really, really, really love it. In fact, it's like we just had Thanksgiving in the United States, right? So it's like a big, okay, don't get me started. It's like a big banquet, a big buffet of sustenance, of food that you're feeding them. Because when there is bickering, when there is discord, when there is portioning off, bubbling off, constricting off, that is a huge, they feed on it. Because so you could, I could hit the button on a Google search and and look for images, and I could pick images of, household names that, are on the blue aisle and the red aisle and, independent aisles and all that kind of stuff, just as one way to do it. And they know this. They understand this. They are masters of this, and that's why this false construct actually came into being. And I'm talking, this is a eons long, before the known history. Before the known. So if you're not familiar with that term, it might be fun to play with what that term is, because that'll be an eye opener and show you there's a whole other playing field of lots of camps out there as well. But anyways, that's important for me I feel nudged to do that, to say this, because when you're not going within and doing the inside job where everything is, and somehow, instead of kind of shunting everything in lots of little, again, more division, more pieces, more separateness, more duality-ness, more campness, you could a metaphor I could use is, you just gave your enemy, who you're in a war with, 5 million tanks, crate upon crate of howitzers and all the ammunition for everything. Because what you're giving them is far more valuable than the howitzer, the tank, or everything else. You're giving them that energy frequency sustenance, which diminishes you, demeans you, and enhances your propensity to play small, and enhances their propensity to be large from your perception of doing, evil things. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I guess in the end result for me that what I've been feeling into lately for myself in regards to all of this is everybody has to do their own. Everybody has to muddle through this and figure it out for themselves. And I'm not saying that the way I'm going about this for me will work for anyone else. That's why I really love that term. Your mileage may vary. Use some things you feel that will fit and work for you and whatnot. But I'm very aware that as each of us move through all of this holing, there's reasons for how each one of us go through it, because of the whole that exact thing where you were talking before in regards to the whole point is for source to go forth and know source. So again, we have this huge propensity and proclivity in our society to point at each other and say, oh, and compare ourselves to where anybody else is, because we're taught how to do that from a very young age. Why can't you be more like your sister? Why can't you be more like Tommy over there? Don't be like Dick, that kind of stuff. So that's still goes on even within all of us, because part of it's a groove. I'm still recognizing that in myself, even though I do call myself out on it as soon as I catch it. So I guess I want to add at the tail end of this for myself is that I'm very well aware that each one of us has to go through our own gig, our own set of steps, and we will find our way. Everybody needs to just, take a breath and realize. But I do feel very strongly that if you want to know what's taking so long, take a look. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel about it, and just got to get over it at this
And
point.
she doesn't mean look at Sheila.
No, it means take a look at the person in the shirt,
right,
in the mirror, whatever, because I really that's the way this is all going down, and all perceptions are valid, and we all. I mean, I get aggravated, sure, because it feels sometimes like there's this wrong idea or perception about how I view things. But I'm also very aware that that's okay. I don't have to have anyone agree with me. Nobody. I don't really expect anybody to fully agree with anything I say. Again, part of the whole point of this exercise of coming into physicality and getting to know source is to have all these different kinds of experiences and then wander around and compare notes and say, wait a minute, what you got? Because that's the whole idea, right? I mean, so I don't know. I guess I want to thank you both for playing with this with me. I hope it, I don't know, answered some questions, helped anyone. And if it didn't, I don't, I don't know what to say about that, but if you have questions or
one thing I will say, it's like I began at the beginning when you first asked me, the question is that it actually, in beginning to play with the question, you see how it's connected to everything else, and there's a whole lot more there, and so you can play with different aspects of it, just as any of our conversations, but you need to keep playing and keep having them, because one, that's the only way you're going to start to even get a smidge of all that's there that's related to it to play with, number one. And number two, you have to keep playing, because as each expansion point shifts and changes, and each dimensional frequency shift changes, then it's like, there's more nuance, there's more complexity, there's more simplicity, which, if it's a linear brain reading it, comes off as even more complex than, the last sentence kind of thing.
No, exactly.
And it's, something is happening to each being when they do this, when they're part of this energetic envelope or anything else, when they're writing a comment or reading a comment, when they're doing some experience themselves, going to work, whatever it is, there are things changing. And as you expand your awareness, you are changing everything. So I mean that literally. You are changing everything within your physical bones, blood, cells being, in your mental being, and your emotional being, and your electromagnetic being, and your etheric being. You're changing everything within all the other beings that are on the surface of the planet and within the planet and off-world and in all in sources multiverse, because that's where the unity, the all one, comes in, because it's actually so, right, in a literal sense, and it's also so in a metaphoric sense.
Well, this is why for me that it's, again, I know it sounds like I was speaking on the outside of my body, but it is just a more expanded view of not just who I am, but who we all are, individually, collectively, all of that. Wow.
I was told I could save the world by saving myself. And am I not a world?
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, I think that's the only way.
It is the only way. And the irony is that some people say, yeah, but it's a damn sight easier to just go out there and try to save the world than try to work on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet, no matter how much hard work you do on everybody else, that will never fix your problem.
I was going to say, I know, right? 57 years of trying to work on everybody else. I finally got the memo.
I have no control over you.
That's right.
All of this. Which is pretty exciting.
Right.
We got a lot to work with.
Well, I really appreciate you two talking with me about this one, because, I feel like it is a big thing to talk about. I've heard it. It's not just been directed at me. I've heard it in other, quarters as well. And I think any of us that are looking from one spiritual bubble over into another spiritual bubble is doing a little bit of that comparing too, or judging or whatever. too. So there's a bit of that. Hey, include myself. I don't particularly care for anybody thinking I'm in a spiritual bubble either. So, I include myself in on that too. So I am aware that I am still limiting myself. And although I think because I am aware and I call myself out and take steps to extricate myself from inside the box that I've placed myself within for so long. I don't know, feels pretty damn good to me, so I'm just keep doing that, So I might not be totally out of my box yet, but I'm on my way.
But that's how everybody gets to, out of their own box or whatever, metaphor that they're, euphemism that they're using for it. And playing with a whole host of things from within is how you get there.
Right.
And some of it's fluffy bunnies and some of it's, Tyrannosaurus Rex just chewed that hiker's head off, so and a whole bunch of stuff in between.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear comments and questions or, anything that anyone, and I do mean that, anything anyone might have to say or ask or anything about this particular conversation, all of our conversations. And, but I wanted to ask, do either one of you have anything you wanted to add to this particular? I'm sorry, the smart ass in me just wanted to say particular energetic bubble. So I'm sorry. No takers?
The only thing I would say is just that this is just, kind of a few grains of unseen dust particles of the whole focus of topic.
Yeah, because it's a big topic. Well, I don't think we've tackled any topics, but because they're all so connected, it's all connected, so it's all huge. What, Lisa?
Because we're so big, we cannot help it.
That's absolutely
There's a
true.
lot to cover.
Nope, that's absolutely true. Well, we will have all the usual information in all the usual places, so you can get a hold or of any one of us in the show more section of this video. You'll find that information. And like I said, I'd love to hear from anyone either at my email or in the comments or wherever you'd like to on the IUV, because I know this will go up on the IUV as well. And so until next time,